friends, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're doing well. Welcome to another video and welcome back to another cozy wrap up. Today we're going to be talking about all of the books that I was able to read in the month of November, how well I did, my stats, everything like that. Of course, my favorite book and my favorite quotes of the month. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Today, instead of drinking tea or hot chocolate or anything like that, I'm going to be drinking a smoothie. This is going to be my cozy beverage of the day. And that is mostly just due to the fact that I am starving. I need to eat something. This is sustenance. And I need to be filming at the same time. So 2 birds, 1 stone. But actually now, let's go ahead and get into the stats. So this month was a fantastic reading month, especially with all of the stuff that I was doing this month, including traveling for a weekend vacation. I was also pre-filming for Merry Bookmas, so it's been a wild ride, and the fact that I got as much reading done as I did, I'm very proud of myself. This month I was able to read a total of 21 books, which was fantastic, such a great reading month. With those 21 books, it was a total of 6,414 pages, which is an average of 214 pages per day, and an average book size of 305 pages. As per usual, my audiobook hours were quite high with 147 hours of audiobook listening. As for my formats this month, I read a total of 12 mixed media books, 4 audiobooks, 4 ebooks, and 3 physical books. As for my star ratings, I had 5 5 stars, 8 4 stars, 3 3 stars, 1 2 star, and 1 book that I gave no rating to, so that brought my average to a 3.75, which is much lower than most months. Then for my genres, I read 10 romances, 5 fantasies, 1 graphic novel and 1 manga, 1 sci-fi, 1 historical fiction, 1 mystery, and 1 magical realism book. As for my age ranges, I read 13 adult books, 2 new adult books, 5 young adult books, and 1 middle grade. As for my representation, I read 5 books with illness rep, 4 books with mental health rep, 1 book with disability rep, which means that 11 of my books had no representation at all. Now for my POC representation, I read books by 3 authors of color, which means that 19 of the books that I read this month were not written by authors of color. And I read 6 books that had a character of color, which means that 15 books had no characters of color at all. Then for my LGBTQI+ breakdown, I read 5 books where the main character was part of the community, 7 books where it was present in a side character, and 5 books with no representation. And then as for that breakdown, I read 4 books with bisexuality rep, 4 books with gay rep, 2 books with lesbian rep, 1 book with trans rep, and 1 book that was non-specified. I read 16 books written by women, 4 books written by men, and 1 book written by an author that has a non-specific gender. This month, I read 17 books that were part of a series, 4 books that were standalones, and I finished 8 series this month. 20 of the books this month I read for the first time, and I read 1 reread. 15 of the books I read this month were ones that I owned, 4 were gifted to me, and 2 that I borrowed. Then for my publication years, I read 6 books published in 2021, 4 books published in 2020, 7 books published in 2019, 1 book published in 2015, 2 books published in 2011, and 1 book published in 2008. And finally, for my color breakdowns, I read 5 blue books, 3 black books, 2 yellow books, 2 orange books, 2 purple books, 2 brown books, 2 green books, 1 pink book, 1 gray book, and 1 white book. And then feel free to let me know what you thought of the stats this month. I changed it up for the season, and I will most likely do it in the Christmas time, so I have fun Christmas-themed stats. So let me know what you thought of them. I would love to hear your thoughts. Is it too messy? Do you like it? Let me know what you think. But without further ado, let's get into our very first book, and that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I am the minority. I am the minority to say that I was disappointed by this book. That being said, I still gave it a 4 star. I thought that it was a good book. I just don't think that it was as amazing as everyone else said it was. It didn't give me that overarching, explosive emotions situation. Like, that just didn't happen for me. I didn't burst into tears. I wasn't overly overwhelmed by emotion while reading this. And unfortunately, that's sad for me because I really wanted to be that way. I wanted to feel that emotion, but it didn't connect for me. This is a retelling of the Iliad, told from Patroclus's, what's the word? Perspective. I couldn't think of the word perspective. Patroclus's perspective, falling in love with Achilles. It's a male retelling of the Iliad, and I thought that it was very beautiful. I liked the romance. However, I felt like there were times where the romance really took a backseat to the plot, and seeing as I already know a ton of, well, I don't know a ton, but from what I remember about reading the Iliad, I know a lot about the story and how it goes, so I didn't really care for that aspect of the story, and I think that's the reason why I didn't have a full, emotional experience with this because I had a lack of connection to the characters just due to how the story was told. And I think that I literally am the minority here because so many of you have read this and love the characters and would die for them. I didn't have that experience, unfortunately. 4 stars. I thought it was good. I would never reread it. I'm glad that I read it so I can say, you know, I did that, but I'm just not blown away like most of you guys were. Up next, I read an ebook, and that is let me think about it. Hold on one second. Lola and the Boy Next Door. This is by Stephanie Perkins. This is the last book in the Anna and the French Kiss series. I did borrow this one from the library, and I listened to the audiobook and read alongside the ebook. And this was my favorite book in the series. This one follows Lola and Cricket, who live next door to each other, as the title suggests. And they were really close friends when they were younger. And Cricket has a twin sister named Calliope, who is very well known for being an Olympic ice skating competitor. And Cricket and Calliope had a very interesting dynamic, and Cricket was very like close to his sister, and a lot of manipulation and miscommunication happened between Lola and Cricket due to Calliope's interference. And so Cricket moved away several times, and they kind of fractured their relationship. And now you're coming back at the end of Lola's, I think, junior year of high school, or maybe senior year of high school, and Cricket is back in town, and she's really struggling with her relationship with him, while she also has a boyfriend to a guy that she thinks that she's in love with. And so you follow their love story, and I just thought this one was just so sweet and cute, and I liked it. I think that Cricket's relationship with Lola was very sweet and wholesome, and I liked how doting and kind and honest that he was with Lola, and I liked how even though Lola had a boyfriend, there was no instance of cheating in this book, which I found very refreshing because I found that in a lot of YA books, that tends to come up a lot, and I just don't like it. I don't think that it's a satisfactory explanation for doing what you did just because you have some connection to a person that you knew for years. I don't know. For me, I that's what I think about cheating in, especially in YA books. It really just, it irks me to no end. It's not okay in any situation, but for some reason in YA books, it really bothers me, and I'm glad that this book didn't include that. But I did enjoy it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I think that it was a great conclusion to the series. I would never read them again. I was rereading them from my childhood. This is my one reread for the month, and I liked it. Really enjoyed it. Glad that I read it, but glad that the series is over. Up next, we have Fire in His Fingertips. This is a manga. This is by Kawano Tanishi. This is a very interesting manga. It was wrapped, so, you know, go in that with that knowledge. It was wrapped. I bought it at Barnes & Noble, and I was like, it's wrapped. I know what wrapped means. I'm gonna buy it. And, yeah, it was wrapped for a reason. I don't even think that I could, like, freaking show you why it's wrapped, because it's intense. It's an intense, situation here. I'm trying to think, is there even, like, a one page that I could show you? I might be able to, like, if you just look right there, please don't please don't lose my monetization, but it was very intense. I have never seen such graphic things drawn in a book before. Granted, I've never really read manga like this except for Dick Fight Island, which I read as a joke. But this one I went in with like all seriousness, wanted to read this, wanted to enjoy the story, and you know, it was okay. It follows a girl who is best friends with a maybe she's not best friend, maybe she just knows him from her past, but a firefighter, and her house ends up burning down. He comes in and rescues her, and then they have this very interesting whirlwind relationship between the two of them that is very sexual very quickly. So yeah, that was interesting. 3 out of 5 stars. I cannot say that I didn't enjoy my time. I just don't think that I will continue to buy any books in this series. I can definitely find some better mangas out there, at least I think. And then my graphic novel for the month was Heartstopper Volume 4 by Alice Oseman. I love this graphic novel so much. Oh my gosh. I love the 4th one. I think that it was so well done. I loved the topics of this. I liked how well eating disorders and self-harm were handled. I like the topic of therapy and how sometimes you have to take care of yourself, and that means, you know, going to a place specified for helping with things like this, and how it doesn't make you less of a person, and it doesn't change who you are just because you had to ask for help. And I loved that, but I also like the fact that it was very wholesome and cute, and Nick and Charlie's relationship is continuing to grow, and I just love it so much. I think this graphic novel is so freaking cute. I know that everyone talks about this, everyone is raving about it, but I think that it's for a good reason. I definitely think that if you haven't read this, you absolutely should give it a try. It is literally fantastic. 5 out of 5 stars from me. The next book that I read was Cece, Rios and the Desert of Souls by Kayla Rivera. This is a middle grade, but I'm not going to be able to well explain the synopsis, but basically Cece lives in this world where creatures are governed by like these very well-known, very old gods, and if you get captured by these gods, then it's kind of like and bad things happen to you when you're captured by these gods. And the entire city and the town that she lives in very well knows about the circumstances behind these gods. But when Cece Rios was young, she got in contact with a god that she thought was very kind and sweet. And as she was walking back, they caught her, and she went out of her way to make sure that she could free the god that they were trying to kill. And so she became kind of an outcast of her society. And when she gets in a fight with her sister when she's much older, they run off into the forest where they're not supposed to go. And her sister Juana gets kidnapped by one of the very well-known gods. He's known for being cruel, and he takes these girls as his bride. And so Cece goes on a journey to become a bruja, which is very frowned upon in this community, so that she can get into the same place where her sister is being held and safer. I thought it was a really, really cute middle grade. I liked how well it was done. I liked the audiobook. I think that the aspects of Mexican culture that was included in here was really well done. I liked the characters. I loved the found family and the animal companions that were in here. I think that it was a super cute middle grade. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was really well done. I think that the pacing was a little bit off here and there for me, which is why I couldn't give it that full 5 stars. But if you are looking for a really cute middle grade with some really adventurous themes, but also themes of family and learning where to belong in a family that doesn't really accept you for who you are, I thought it was really well done. I will say that there is a small scene in here that has instance of child abuse, so if you're triggered by that, keep that in mind. But I think that it was really well done, and I really enjoyed it. And I actually figured out that this, somebody told me at least, that this is going to be a series, so I'm really excited to read book 2. Up next, we have Desperate Measures by Katie Robert. I read this one and really freaking enjoyed this. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I thought that it was absolutely stunning. I don't know if stunning is the right word for a BDSM romance that is a retelling of Jasmine and Jafar, but that's the word I'm going with. This is, like I said, a retelling of Jasmine and Jafar in modern time days, and it's set in the same world as the Neon Gods series, but just a little bit outside of that world. The kind of center tie into this is Hades' underground sex club that is also included in the first book in the Neon God series, which actually follows Hades and Persephone in that particular BDSM club. But this book heavily relies on a daddy and baby girl kink. If you're not into that, I don't think you will like this. I know Sharon recently read this, and she was like, I did not care for the daddy and baby girl kink. And I kind of think it's hot. I'm not gonna lie. Everyone has their own likes and kinks that they don't like. This one particularly works for me, so I really enjoyed it. I also liked how badass and hardcore Jasmine was as a character. She wasn't spineless. She didn't just go around with every plan that was thrown her way because it seemed like an easy thing to do, which I really enjoy. But I also like that Jafar, in the movies, he's very callous and cold, but I like that when Katie Roberts retells these stories, she gives each character a lot more personality and a lot more depth, and I really enjoyed Jafar's character in this story. Overall, really enjoyed it. Cannot wait to move on to book 2 in this series. 5 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. Alright, let's talk about my one and only 2-star this month, and that was Fairest by Marissa Meyer. This one pains me to no end to say that I read a Marissa Meyer book and gave it a 2-star, because who am I? Marissa Meyer is one of my favorite authors of all time, but this book just didn't work for me. I can't express it enough, but it just didn't work. I didn't enjoy my time. I didn't enjoy my experience. I did not think that this was a good villain origin story. For me, when I read villain origin stories, I have to find something in this character that is somewhat redeemable, somewhat likable for me to even root for them, and Levana had 0 of that the entire story. She is manipulative and unkind the entire way through, and I feel like a lot of the times when I read a villain story, it's like they're kind people until something bad happens to them that makes them the way that they are. And granted, that did happen in this case, but it just didn't feel warranted or okay or fun to read about. So unfortunately, I didn't love this one. 2 out of 5 stars. I will definitely, surprisingly, be keeping this book because I would like to have a full collection of this series once I get the newer set in the paperbacks. But I was not excited by this, and I was extremely disappointed. So that's unfortunate, but you can't win them all. Then I read an ebook, and this is called Just Drop Out. I don't remember the name of the author. I think it's something Bree or something like that. But this is a it's a reverse harem series that is set in a high school setting with a 15 or 17-year-old girl. So when you put it in that context, it sounds yucky, and it kind of was. This one follows, God, her name is Lips. I remember that. Her real name is Eclipse, but everyone calls her Lips, and that was just disgusting in my opinion. I hated that very much. But Eclipse is this foster kid who grew up very rough after her parents passed away. I think the dad was a deadbeat and the mom passed away, and she ends up in the foster care system, and during that time she ends up getting picked up and taken under the wing of the Jackal. He's basically like a gang leader who grooms other gang leaders to like kind of rule this different sections of this town, all while under his influence. And she becomes one of the 12 by enacting some very cruel and crazy things in her life. And then she decides that she wants to get away from this life, so she goes and partakes in a scholarship at a prep school named Hannaford Prep, and she gets bullied there because she is a scholarship kid and nobody likes her, and the 3 male interests are very rude and unkind and mean to her. And I get it's a bully romance, it's supposed to be dark, but it just didn't work for me. I thought it was a little too over the edge. I don't like the excessive inclusivity of gang rape and sexual assault, and it wasn't tasteful. The fact that it was set in a high school setting wasn't tasteful. And when I say that there was literally 0 reverse harem things happening in this first book and it was over 300 pages, I was not a fan of this. So I will not be continuing on with this series. I don't think that it was worth the reading experience. That being said, I give it a 3 out of 5 stars. I don't think it was terrible. I think that the writing had some merit and I think it had potential to be great, but it wasn't something that I will continue on with. So it is what it is. Switching back over to a physical book, we have Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one is one that I really enjoyed. Yet another 5-star from Taylor Jenkins Reid for me. I really enjoyed this book. This one follows the Riva family, which if you read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Mick Riva was one of Evelyn's husbands. And this is following his first marriage to like a low, she wasn't really anything. She was somebody that he met during a like beach party, and they ended up becoming this really close-knit relationship until things eventually ended up falling apart. But you're following the kids of Mick Riva and I forget her name, the wife, and you know at the beginning of the story that Nina Riva's house, which they throw this big party at every year, is going to burn down. But then you start from the beginning of the day and work your way through, and you're following all different perspectives of the 4 kids, Nina, Jay, Hut, and Kit, and you're following all of their perspectives as they kind of move through their issues with their past and their family, but also their present issues that is going on and how it's affecting their lives. I thought it was a really well done, well told story. I loved the audiobook. I loved the narration of this. I know that a lot of people were disappointed with this book, but I found it so all consuming, and like it really did draw me in and wrapped me in the story, and I loved every second of this. I thought that it was super well done. I liked how some of the issues that were talked about in this were tackled really well. You do have trigger warnings for alcoholism and cheating, a ton of cheating, so beware of that. There's also some other things in here. There's excessive drug use in here, so beware of that. It is set in like the 60s and 70s, where like the height of like drug use and stuff like that is like really rampant in Hollywood parties. Not that it's not the case now, I'm just saying it felt very wild and crazy during this time. So I liked it. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was a really well written story. I think that it kept me on the edge of my seat guessing at every turn. I think the ending could have been a bit better, but I still enjoyed most of my reading experience, so 5 out of 5 stars for me. Then we have The Serpent Curse by Lisa Maxwell. As you guys know, this is the 3rd book in the Last Magician series, and I picked this up a few months ago, read half of it, and then put it down, and then I picked it up again this month to finish the last like 300 plus pages of this big chunky beast, and I finished it and really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The first book in the series is still my favorite, but I did really enjoy the 3rd book. If you don't know what the first book is about, it follows Esta, who has the ability to stop in full time, but with an artifact she's able to travel through time and go into the past and the future, but she's sent to the past by her professor to steal a book that is supposed to help bring down the Brink, and the Brink is this magical force around New York City that keeps all of the magical beings in, and if you try to pass through that Brink, then you either get stripped of your magic or you die. It's a much devolved plot from there. It gets very crazy, very intricate. There's a lot of lies and scheming going on, and there's also multiple perspectives over multiple different timelines, so it can get kind of confusing, but I did really enjoy the 3rd book. I thought that the pacing was a little bit better. I really enjoyed where the characters went. I think that it had a lot of intrigue, a lot of questions, and I'm really excited for book 4, which is going to complete off the series. I was going to say trilogy. That's not proper. Correct. That's not correct. So yeah, book 4, excited for it. Really enjoyed this one. 4 out of 5 stars. Hoping the last book can be a 5-star read for me, but we shall see. Then I read another ebook, and that is Sacrifice by Katie Robert. This is the first book in the Bloodline Vampire series. It is a reverse harem with 3 vampires and 1 female, and it follows the girl who I cannot remember her name, even though I just read the 2nd book like a few days ago. And she basically gets sent to this vampire's house because she is half human, half vampire, but she doesn't have any magic. So her father sends her away to become a blood bag as well as a breeder for this vampire who is high in one of the very important bloodlines. And when she gets there, she realizes that she has a much stronger attraction to this vampire than she would have originally thought, and they create a relationship between the vampire and his two friends that come in about midway through the book. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very fun. I thought it was very sexy. Katie Robert knows how to write some really good smut, and yes, it was hot. I liked it. It's very short. They're like novella size, like about 150 pages each. I read books 1 and 2 this month, so we'll talk about book 2 in a little bit, but I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. Then after that, I read another ebook, and that was Merciless. Winter Willow, I think, is the author of this one. And I didn't really enjoy this one. This was a mafia romance between a mafia leader as well as a kidnapped heroine. It was kind of like a Stockholm syndrome type of romance, which there's nothing wrong with that. I do enjoy a good dark romance that has those aspects to it. However, I didn't like this romance. It didn't feel angsty, it didn't feel hot, it didn't feel sexy. Nothing about it worked for me. Again, the writing was well done, and I did enjoy where the story could go, so I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, but it wasn't something that worked for me, so I won't be continuing on with the series. I think it was like 5 or 6 books, and I was like, no, not worth it. I'm okay. So yeah, 3 out of 5 stars. I read it. I'm happy to get it off my Kindle TBR, but I will not be continuing on with that series. Let's quickly talk about my one and only DNF this month, and that is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I read a majority of this book last month, so I'm not really going to talk about it too much. I got about 140 pages into this one and decided that I didn't want to continue. This is a mystery that happens between a lawyer, I think, or maybe I don't remember what he is, but he's trying to solve a 40-year-old disappearance case, and I just didn't like the writing style, I didn't like the plot, I didn't like where it was going, I wasn't having a great time, so I decided to DNF it. I didn't rate it, so good on the Goodreads rating, but I didn't want to read it, so I'm getting rid of this one and the second book in the series. Unfortunately, this was the month of disappointments, and I read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and I gave this one a 3 star. This one was one that was high up on my priority list, and I really thought that I was going to give it a 5 out of 5 stars. Unfortunately, that was not the case. I really didn't enjoy most of this reading experience. The only reason why I got a 3 star and not a 2 star was because I liked the ending, but I just didn't enjoy most of this book. This one follows Nora, who is having a rough time in her life and decides to commit suicide, and upon waking up, she wakes up between life and death in this midnight library where she's able to open up books to different decisions that she could have made with her life and see how that would have played out. But the one thing that I didn't like about this book in particular is Matt Haig felt really preachy. It was like a self-help book that he was trying to throw in your face all of these life lessons, and it didn't feel like it was done in a tasteful manner, at least for me. I also didn't like how each life was played out. She wakes up in these lives not knowing anything about what's happening, and she's kind of like thrust in, and I just didn't like all of the questions. Every time we went into a life, it was like, what am I doing? Where am I? What is life like? And it just didn't feel rewarding. I don't know. I didn't love it. It was okay. Disappointed, to say the least. I was really hoping this was going to be a new favorite of mine, like a lot of you guys, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. Alright, up next, I read Ravensong by TJ Klune. This is the second book in the Green Creek? Fuck! I get it wrong every time. I don't know what the freaking series is called. I was just talking to somebody in my comments, and they were like, you got the series name wrong again. I'm like, I know! Every time I edit it, I'm like, that's not right, but I can't remember what it is at the top of my head every time. Anyways, this is the series by TJ Klune. It is about gay werewolves. The first book is. The second book follows 2 characters that are also a part of the same world, in the same pack, but it's 2 different perspectives, and I really enjoyed this book. This one follows Gordo, who has a little bit more of a magical aspect than the first book, which I really enjoy. I don't want to divulge this series too much because I think that you should go in pretty blind, but I love the second book. It's probably one of my favorite, it's one of my favorite series of all time, for sure. I love how TJ Klune writes. I like his plots. I like his sex scenes. I like his stories. I like his characters. I like his found family aspects. I love every single character in here with all of my heart, and if anything bad happens to them, I am literally going to expire from this earth. Just expire, and I just can't take it. So, highly recommend this if you have not picked up this series. It is literally fantastic. But again, the first book follows gay werewolves. That's all you need to know going in. Trust me, it's amazing. And then right after I finished Ravensong, I actually read Lovesong, which is the little short novella in between books 2 and 3. And this one follows the perspective of the mother of the pack during the events of books 1 and book 2. And I really enjoyed it. It was a like 15-16 page little novella. It was very short, but it was very gorgeous. I cried. I was sobbing. Literally 15 pages, and I was sobbing, crying. It was so good. 5 out of 5 stars. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I also gave Ravensong a 5 out of 5 stars. So good, highly recommend it again, definitely read it. Then I picked up the 5th book in the Wayward Children series, Come Tumbling Down by Shauna Maguire. I was trying to get this series finished before the end of the year, still working on the last book, but we shall see. This one follows, we're going back to the characters that we focused on in book 2, which is Jack and Jill, and they're going back to the moors. I don't want to divulge really too much about this because each book follows different characters and different scenarios, but I feel like you really should read the first book before you kind of delve into more of the books in the series. At least that's my personal opinion. The first book follows this school for wayward children where these kids are coming back from these portal worlds, but they have found doors that have let them into worlds they feel like they belong, and then they, for some reason, get sent back to the real world and they have to reacclimate. And this one follows 2 characters that are twins, Jack and Jill, and I really, really enjoyed this. I thought this was really well done. I also just realized that Shauna Maguire likes to write twins that have rhyming names. Roger and Dodger, and then Jack and Jill. Very interesting, but really enjoyed this. It's probably one of my favorite books in the series. I love this cover. I think it's stunning. And I highly suggest that you give the series a go if you haven't tried it. They are really short. They're easy to fly through. The audiobooks are great. And I really enjoyed it. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Up next, I read Heir by Katie Robert, which is the 2nd book in the Vampire Bloodline series. I gave this one also a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought that was really well done. Again, they're really short novellas. I'm not going to talk too much more about this because I already explained the first book and it doesn't make sense to talk about the 2nd book. So again, 4 out of 5 stars. Enjoyed it. I'm actually in the middle of reading the 3rd book as we speak, so hopefully I can finish up that series relatively soon and really enjoy it as a whole. Then I read Flock. This is by Kate Stewart, and this is a polyamorous relationship following a girl who is moving back to her father's town after her mother is kind of off doing her own thing while she's trying to recover from addiction. And she is really focusing on going to spend some time at her father's estate and working at her father's plant so that she can earn her inheritance in the next year and take care of her mother. Her father is kind of like this big guy in the small city that they live in, and she really doesn't like her father. He's never been around. He never really provided money for her mother, and so she really doesn't have a great relationship with him. But during her first day at work, she meets Sean, who is the supervisor at the plant, and they create a relationship, and he ends up introducing her to a group of guys that she calls the Ravenhood because they are all these guys that have the same raven tattoo. And this relationship is between Sean and then one of the other guys, like the head guy of this section of the Ravenhood in the little city that they live in. And it's a polyamorous relationship between them, but you know from the beginning that something is going to happen that's going to fracture their relationship because you start off in the present and then you go back when she's 19 to live out her story with her. And I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was really well done. I will have to say that the first 100 pages I was like, why am I reading this? It's so boring. I was so bored. And then all of a sudden it kicked into gear and I could not put it down. And then I got to the end with this huge freaking cliffhanger and I was like, what the fuck? Why? Nobody warned me. I can totally see why it was all over TikTok. Everyone is literally ranting and raving about this series. That's why I picked it up, because I wanted to know the hype. I wanted to get over the FOMO, you know? But I was really shocked by the way that this book kind of escalated into something crazy that I just couldn't put down. I stayed up really late reading the first book. I already own the second book, so I will definitely get around to it very soon. But highly recommend it if you want to give it a try. It definitely has darker themes, but I think that the polyamorous relationship was handled very well, very tastefully, and it made it feel so cute. I really liked it. I thought that it was really well done. I'm very curious to see what they do with the second book because holy crap, but pray for me because I might never get sleep again. My last physical book of the month is When Night Breaks by Janella Angelis. This is the second book in, I believe it's the duology for the Kingdom Cards duology, which the first one is Where Dreams Ascend. This is a book about magicians who are coming together to do a big competition between the magicians to figure out who is the best of them all, but you're also doing it in this city that harbors a lot of secrets. Once you enter the competition, you can't get out, but you're also following the perspective of Jack, who was basically like Kalia's, the main character's housekeeper for the first good portion of her life, and she's kind of running away from that to get away from Jack, but she ends up in this very crazy and very interesting, intriguing city between this crazy magician competition where people are disappearing and things are happening behind the scenes. And this book really did divulge that plot a lot more. You got a whole nother world that you were looking into. You really got it in touch with the magic and the way that this world works, and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought that it was so well done. I really liked it as a conclusion to this series, and I feel like she left it pretty open-ended where she can go back to this world and write about different characters and still have a very open world to explore, which I really enjoyed. So very well done, really liked it, really loved the writing style, loved the characters, I loved the arcs that these characters went through and how they got to where they ended up in the end. Super well done. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars and hoping to read more of Janella Angeles' work whenever she publishes something else. And finally, the very last book, oh my god, I'm tired. Finally, the last book that we're going to talk about is Rejected by Jamin Eve. This is the first book in the Shadow Beast Shifters series. It is what it sounds like. It's a Shifters dark romance. And I am enjoying the series so far. I think that I definitely have enjoyed the first series that I read by her more. It was a YA series, and I feel like she definitely took some liberties in this adult series that definitely weren't necessary. But I do like the fact that this main character was a spitfire of a character. She had a backbone. Like, she didn't take any shit. She was very humorous. She definitely was the type of person that like deflected everything with humor and sarcasm, which I really enjoyed. But basically this follows a main character who is a werewolf who is close to her first shift, and when you're in your first shift you really need a pack around you that's going to help you through. However, in the past her father tried to kill the leader of the shifter pack, and that created a very interesting situation for this main character because she's now like an outcast and a leper in this community. And so she decides that she's had enough, she's gonna run away, but before she gets the chance to actually get away from the pack, she is scooped up by the son of the leader of the pack, and he's like, no, you're not going anywhere, you're going to be here for your first shift. And when she does her first shift, she finds out that Torin, who is the son of the shifter pack, is actually her true mate, but he rejects her. And in that fury and that destruction of her heart when the shifter rejects her, she ends up being able to touch the Shadow Realm, and the Shadow Beast, who is known for creating the shifters, comes and steals her away, and it's a romance between her and the Shadow Beast, and it is quite interesting, to say the least. It's definitely a very, very interesting world. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of attached worlds along this new journey that she's going on, and I really enjoyed it. I thought there was a lot of good angst between the two characters. There was a really hot scene that happened in the fairy world that had to do with fertility. I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was super well done. I liked it a lot, but I just think that the writing style wasn't my favorite. So I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars just for like execution and writing, but the actual premise of the story and the potential is definitely there. So I will definitely continue on with the series and read more, but we shall see if I give any of the books in the series a higher rating than this one. Okay, we made it through all of the books. I finished my smoothies, so let's talk about my favorites of this month. I will put the graphic here up on the screen, and you will know that my favorite book of this month was Ravensong by TJ Klune. Honestly, I think that TJ Klune is going to take over the next 2 months because I don't see any other book beating out this series. I love it so much. It has a special place in my heart, and everything about the series works for me. So yeah, Ravensong is my favorite book. And then as for my favorite quotes, they are both from Ravensong, quotes that I really enjoy. One of them is very wholesome, the other one is hilarious, at least to me. But the one that's wholesome, it says, "Wherever you are, that's where my home is." And this is something that is like a very central theme throughout both of the books that I've read, and that is in regards to home. And I love that quote from this book. And then the second quote that just makes my heart so happy because it's so hilarious. And it says, "You could have become the villain Gordo, and it would have been within your rights. Instead, you chose to be an asshole." And I just think it's so funny. Every time I read it, it's like the epitome of this main character, and I love it so much. So yeah, those are my favorite books and my favorite quotes of this month. Let me know what you guys read in the month of November and what your favorite book was. Let me know if you've read any of these and your thoughts on them. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you made it to the end of this video, leave a plant emoji, any plant that you want, I don't even know how many there are. I swear I do not pay attention to emojis. But that is the end of this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave. And of course, leave any comments, questions, and suggestions in the comment section below. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.